Strait of Hormuz, June 20th, 2019, 045 local time. A US Navy RQ-4A Global Hawk drone was flying at 60,000 feet, an altitude higher than commercial airlines, higher than most military aircraft could reach. The drone was massive in size, wingspan 130 feet, larger than a Boeing 737, weight 15,000 kilograms, cost $220 million. It was one of the most expensive drones in the US military inventory. The Global Hawk was on a surveillance mission. It was monitoring Iranian military activities, tracking naval movements, collecting electronic intelligence. This was not unusual. The US had been conducting surveillance flights over the Persian Gulf for decades. Standard intelligence gathering, standard operations. The drone was operating in international airspace. According to the US military, it was 34 kilometers from the Iranian coastline, well outside Iran's 12 nautical mile territorial waters limit. Everything appeared routine, but in Iran, on the ground, air defense operators were tracking the drone. At a mobile surface-to-air missile battery near Gorgan, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps personnel were monitoring their radar screens. The battery was equipped with Khordad-3 missiles, Iranian design, domestic production, range 75 kilometers, altitude 27,000 meters. The system was newer. It had only been deployed in 2014. It was designed specifically to counter high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft. The battery commander, Major Rahim Karimi, had been tracking American drones for 3 weeks, watching their patterns, learning their routes, waiting for authorization. This authorization came at 0350. You are authorized to engage the American surveillance aircraft if it enters our airspace. But the definition of our airspace was deliberately, intentionally stated vaguely. Iran claimed territorial waters extending 12 nautical miles from its coast, standard international law, but Iran also claimed the entire Strait of Hormuz as internal waters, a maximum claim that no other nation recognized. The Global Hawk was flying near the strait, in an area Iran claimed, in an area the United States insisted was international. At 045, Major Karimi made the decision: lock target, prepare to fire. The Khordad-3 radar locked onto the Global Hawk, tracking solution calculated, flight path predicted. The missile was launched, the solid fuel rocket motor ignited. The Khordad-3 accelerated rapidly. It was climbing towards 60,000 feet. The Global Hawk sensors detected the launch instantly. Threat warning systems activated. Automatic alerts were transmitted to US Central Command. But the Global Hawk had no defensive systems, no countermeasures, no evasion capability. It was designed for high-altitude surveillance, not for contested airspace, not for combat. The drone's only defense was altitude, the assumption that most surface-to-air missiles couldn't reach that high, but the Khordad-3 could. At 00407, the missile intercepted the Global Hawk. The explosion was literally catastrophic. The warhead detonated near the drone's fuselage. Fragmentation pierced through critical systems. The Global Hawk disintegrated, broke into multiple pieces, started falling toward the ocean 60,000 feet below. Some pieces fell into Iranian territorial waters, others into international waters. At US Central Command in Qatar, the alert came immediately. Global Hawk lost. Last known position, Strait of Hormuz. Cause, surface-to-air missile. The response was instant. Senior officers were briefed. Intelligence assessment was initiated. The chain of command was activated. Within 30 minutes, the information reached the Pentagon. President Donald Trump received a briefing at 23:20 EST on June 19. Iran has shot down a US military surveillance drone. Cost, $220 million. Location disputed. Iran claims it was in their airspace. We assess it was in international airspace. Trump's national security team presented the options. First option, limited airstrikes on Iranian air defense sites. Destroy the battery that fired the missile. Show the consequences. Second option, broader strikes on Iranian military infrastructure, missile facilities, command centers, radar sites. Third option, cyber attacks on Iranian systems. Disable air defense networks, reduce their capabilities without kinetic action. Fourth option, economic pressure, additional sanctions, international condemnation, diplomatic isolation. Trump listened to each option. He asked questions about casualties, about escalation risks, about Iran's response. Then he made a decision that shocked his advisors. How many Iranians would die in the airstrikes? The military briefing officers consulted. Estimated 150 casualties for the first option, probably more for the second option. Trump shook his head. Not proportionate. They shot down a drone, an unmanned aircraft. No Americans died. Sir, this is a $220 million asset, and a direct attack on the US military. "This is a drone. I'm not going to kill 150 people over a drone." The room fell silent. This was not the response they expected. Previous presidents, Bush, Obama, had retaliated for less, but Trump's calculation was different. He had listened to his heart. No American casualties meant no domestic pressure for revenge. There was no political cost for restraint. He authorized cyber attacks, offensive operations against Iranian computer systems, targeting missile command and control systems, but no airstrikes, no kinetic response. The decision was announced the next morning. Iran made a very bad mistake, but no.
Americans were harmed. We will respond appropriately. The statement was deliberately vague. No detail about what appropriately meant. In Tehran, the response was triumphant. Iranian state media broadcast the shootdown footage, the missile launch, the explosion, the wreckage. Supreme Leader Khamenei gave a speech. "This is a clear message to America. We will defend our airspace. We will defend our sovereignty. American aggression will be met with force." Crowds celebrated in the streets, chanting anti-American slogans, burning flags. The narrative was clear. Iran had shot down an American military aircraft, and America had done nothing. This was not entirely accurate. The US had launched cyber attacks, had disabled portions of Iran's missile control systems. But cyber attacks are invisible. The public doesn't see them. The media doesn't report them the same way. What people saw was this. Iran shot down a $220 million drone. America issued a statement. The strategic consequences were immediate. For decades, the United States had maintained a doctrine of overwhelming response. Any attack on US military assets would be met with devastating retaliation. But on June 20, 2019, this doctrine was tested, and America chose restraint. The message to Iran was clear. America's red lines were flexible. Attack unmanned systems, and America might not respond militarily. This emboldened Iran's strategy. Within weeks, Iranian-backed forces increased attacks on oil tankers in the Gulf, sabotage operations, limpet mines attached to hulls. In September, Iranian cruise missiles and drones attacked Saudi oil facilities at Abqaiq and Khurais. The largest attack on oil infrastructure in history, knocked out 5% of global oil supply. The US response? Condemnation, sanctions, diplomatic pressure, but no military retaliation. The pattern had formed. Iran could attack. The US would absorb it. American allies in the region noticed. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, all countries dependent on American military protection. If the US wouldn't retaliate for a $220 million drone, would it retaliate for attacks on allied infrastructure? The answer increasingly seemed to be no. Saudi Arabia began direct negotiations with Iran, seeking de-escalation, seeking accommodation. The UAE reduced its military posture, withdrew from Yemen, normalized relations with Syria. American credibility was eroding, not through military defeat, but through strategic restraint that appeared as weakness. The Global Hawk shootdown revealed something deeper about American strategy in the region. The United States was no longer willing to pay the cost of Middle East dominance. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan had exhausted America's appetite for intervention. Domestic politics had changed. The American public didn't support more wars, didn't support casualties for abstract strategic interests. Trump understood this. His entire foreign policy was based on avoiding new conflicts, on bringing soldiers home, on ending endless wars. But this created a vacuum. If America wouldn't enforce its red lines, who would? Iran filled this vacuum, expanded its influence, strengthened its proxies, tested American resolve repeatedly. Each test confirmed the same pattern. America would absorb attacks, issue statements, impose sanctions, but wouldn't use military force. The Global Hawk incident also exposed technological vulnerabilities. The US military had made major investments in unmanned systems, drones, remotely piloted aircraft, autonomous platforms. These systems were cost-effective, reduced personnel risk, enabled continuous surveillance. But they were also vulnerable. Easier to shoot down than manned aircraft. The political cost of targeting them was lower for adversaries. And as the Global Hawk showed, America's response to losing unmanned systems was fundamentally different from losing manned aircraft. Shoot down a drone, statement and sanctions. Shoot down a manned aircraft with American pilots, probably war. This created a strategic asymmetry. Adversaries could attack unmanned systems with reduced fear of retaliation. Iran understood this, began targeting US drones more frequently. In 2020, Iranian-backed forces in Iraq shot down multiple US surveillance drones, small tactical systems, each worth $5 to $10 million. The US response was minimal.
diplomatic protests, occasional limited strikes on militia positions, but nothing that would fundamentally change Iranian behavior. The pattern continued into 2021 and 2022. Iranian forces and proxies shot down at least 7 US drones in various incidents. Each time, the American response was restrained, proportionate to the specific incident, but not escalatory. This was a conscious strategic choice. The US had decided that protecting unmanned systems wasn't worth risking wider conflict, but the cumulative effect was significant. American deterrence eroded. Iranian confidence increased. The Global Hawk shootdown had cost $220 million in hardware, but the strategic cost was much higher. It demonstrated to adversaries that America's red lines were negotiable, that attacks on military assets might not trigger retaliation. It emboldened Iran to pursue more aggressive strategies, more attacks, more testing of American resolve. It weakened confidence among American allies, raised questions about the reliability of American security guarantees, and it revealed the limits of technological superiority. Advanced drones are valuable, but they cannot replace the political will to defend them. Military analysts studied the incident extensively, drew lessons about drone vulnerability, about air defense effectiveness, about strategic signaling. The consensus was clear: the Global Hawk shootdown was a turning point, the moment when Iran realized America wouldn't automatically retaliate for attacks on unmanned systems. This realization shaped Iranian behavior in subsequent years. Some American officials defended the decision, argued that restraint prevented war, saved lives, avoided catastrophe. They pointed out that Trump's cyber response had been effective, had damaged Iranian command and control systems, had degraded their capabilities. But cyber attacks are invisible. Strategic messaging happens in the visible domain, and what the world saw was American restraint that appeared as weakness. Others argued the decision was a mistake, that it invited further aggression, that it undermined deterrence. They believed a limited strike destroying the air defense battery that fired the missile would have sent a message, would have reinforced red lines. But Trump's calculation was simple. Americans didn't die, so Americans shouldn't die in response. It was a humanitarian position, but it had strategic consequences. The Global Hawk incident revealed a fundamental challenge in modern warfare. As militaries become more dependent on unmanned systems, adversaries gain new opportunities. They can attack valuable assets without killing personnel, without triggering the political costs of American casualties. This creates a gray zone, where attacks occur, where damage is inflicted, but where retaliation is constrained by the absence of human losses. Iran exploited this gray zone masterfully, attacked tankers, attacked infrastructure, attacked drones, always calibrating to avoid American deaths, always staying below the threshold that would trigger major retaliation. The strategy worked. Iran expanded its regional influence despite American opposition, despite sanctions, despite technological inferiority, because Iran understood something crucial. America's vast military power is constrained by political will, and that political will is primarily activated by American casualties. Remove the casualties, and the power becomes harder to use. The Global Hawk shootdown was the proof of concept. A $220 million drone destroyed. 0 American deaths. 0 military retaliation. The lesson was learned, and applied repeatedly in subsequent years. The question American strategists are still asking: how do you deter attacks on unmanned systems when the adversary knows you won't go to war over them? The question Iran is still asking: what else can we destroy without triggering retaliation?